Hi, and welcome to the module covering the primary energy supply in osmosis. Looking at the overview of the training material, we have now arrived at module 3, where details about the primary energy supply are described. This module will cover how to create a technology in osmosis and how to represent primary energy supply in an osmosis model. We'll start at looking at the representation of technology in osmosis. Looking at the reference energy system, we have different levels of transformed energy with primary energy to the left and the final energy demand to the right. The technologies are represented in the boxes, and fuels from the technologies are lines connected to the next technology. Looking at the general representation of technologies, the coal extraction technology does not have any fuel coming in, as this is the raw fuel extraction. Power plants generally have one input fuel, in this case gas, and one output fuel, in this case electricity. For the refinery technology, the input fuel is oil, and there are 3 output fuels: gasoline, diesel, and kerosene. Looking at some of the key characteristics of the technology in osmosis, one can see that there are 3 main categories of data surrounding the technology. First, the input commodity, which represents the fuel supplying the technology. Here, information about source, quality, domestic availability, price, and import capability are defined. Second, the output commodity, which represents the fuel leaving the technology, with characteristics such as demand levels, which can be further downstream when it's needed, energy content, production targets, export targets, and impact. Finally, you can specify the techno-economic and environmental specifics of the technology. These typically include the capital cost, variable and fixed operating cost, lifetime, and efficiency. Availability and capacity factors are also defined here. If it's a fossil fuel power plant, you specify also the emission factor. Other parameters that can be defined are energy intensity and ramping capability. A model is always an abstraction of reality. The technology can be defined in any abstraction level that you want for your model. It can be, for example, every power plant modeled individually, or it can be aggregated, representing all transmission lines in one model. Technology is definition in osmosis as a process which converts one energy form to another energy form or a service. As described before, it could be an oil refinery or a lamp, which converts electricity to light. The technology can transmit or distribute energy, and it can also supply or produce energy form. Looking at the characteristics of the technology, as we have seen, a technology can have multiple input and output fuels, as we saw with the refinery, a variation of available capacity over the years, efficiency which vary over time, limitation on production, capacity constraints, emission factors, and emission limitations. We will now focus on a few important aspects when defining the technology: input and output commodities, activity and capacity, and finally, costs.